What if the US dollar stopped being the world's favorite currency? For decades, it has dominated global trade, but today, that dominance is being challenged. Countries around the world are ditching the dollar in favor of their own currencies, and it's not just a trend, it's a major economic shift. From China to Russia and even some US allies, nations are choosing new paths. Why is this happening now? And what does it mean for all of us? Let's break it down, simply and clearly. How the US dollar became king of global trade. The US dollar didn't become the global standard by accident. After World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement placed the dollar at the center of the world's financial system, linking it to gold, while other currencies were pegged to it. Even when the US ended the gold standard in 1971, the dollar remained dominant because the US economy was strong, stable, and trusted. Over time, the dollar became the go-to currency for international trade, especially in vital sectors like oil and gas. Countries around the world began holding dollars in their central bank reserves, conducting trade deals in dollars, and borrowing money in dollars. This gave the US incredible financial power, allowing it to borrow cheaply and impose sanctions effectively. For decades, the dollar was not just a currency, it was a symbol of global trust and influence. But in recent years, cracks have started to show. Nations are asking, should we continue depending on one country's currency for global trade? What is de-dollarization, and why does it matter? De-dollarization is the process of reducing a country's reliance on the US dollar in international trade and financial transactions. It doesn't mean abandoning the dollar entirely, it means finding other options. Countries do this by trading in their own currencies, holding reserves in euros, yuan, or gold, and building financial systems that don't rely on US institutions. Why does this matter? Because the dollar gives the US massive control over the global economy. With it, the US can influence interest rates worldwide, impose sanctions, and manage its own economy with a global safety net. For other countries, this control can feel risky, especially when they face sanctions, inflation, or interest rate changes driven by US policy. De-dollarization is a way for these nations to protect themselves. By reducing dollar use, they gain independence and lower their exposure to foreign risks. It's not just economic, it's political. It's about having more control over your own future in a world where the dollar doesn't always serve everyone equally. Sanctions, risks, and the push for financial independence. One major reason countries are moving away from the US dollar is the growing use of economic sanctions. When a nation faces US sanctions, its banks can be cut off from global systems, its assets frozen, and trade severely restricted, all because so many international transactions rely on the dollar. Countries like Russia, Iran, and Venezuela have been hit hard, and in response, they've started trading in local currencies or turning to gold. Even US allies are becoming cautious, fearing they too could be vulnerable one day. De-dollarization is a way to reduce that risk. By relying less on the dollar, countries gain financial independence and avoid being controlled by another nation's policies. It's not about rejecting the US. It's about building more security and self-reliance. As more governments experience the risks of dollar dependence, shifting to new financial systems becomes a smart, strategic move for their long-term stability and freedom. China, Russia, and the BRICS alliance leading the way. China and Russia are leading the global charge toward de-dollarization, and they're not alone. These two economic giants have strengthened ties through energy deals settled in yuan and rubles instead of dollars. China is also promoting its currency, the yuan, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, where it's investing billions through the Belt and Road Initiative. Meanwhile, Russia has developed an alternative to SWIFT, called SPFS, after being partially removed from the global financial system. But the real game changer might be the BRICS alliance, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Together, they represent over 40% of the world's population and about a quarter of global GDP. BRICS countries are actively working on a joint payment system, possibly even a shared digital currency, to trade among themselves without the dollar. This level of cooperation shows how serious de-dollarization has become. It's not just one or two countries anymore. It's a growing group that believes the future of global trade should not rely on a single nation's currency. Building new systems, digital currencies, and local trade deals. To break free from dollar dependence, countries are building new financial systems. A major part of this involves digital currencies and direct trade agreements. For example, China is pushing its digital yuan, which allows countries to trade without needing U.S. banks or financial networks. Russia is also developing a digital ruble. These technologies make it easier to transfer money quickly, securely, and independently. Beyond technology, countries are signing deals to trade directly in local currencies. India has made agreements with nations like the UAE and Russia to settle payments in rupees. Brazil and Argentina have discussed creating a shared South American currency. These moves are more than just economic strategies. They're about creating flexibility and reducing exposure to U.S. interest rates, debt policies, and sanctions. These local deals also encourage regional trade, which can be more stable and beneficial than relying on global markets. Slowly but surely, countries are laying the foundation for a future where no single currency holds too much power. Can other currencies replace the dollar? The big question is, if not the dollar, then what? The euro, yuan, and even cryptocurrencies are all being considered. But replacing the dollar isn't easy. The euro is popular, especially in Europe and Africa, but political divisions within the EU can make it unstable. The Chinese yuan is gaining ground, especially through China's trade networks, but it's not fully convertible and is still tightly controlled by China's government. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are decentralized and fast, but too volatile to be a serious global trade tool, for now. No single currency can replace the dollar overnight. What we're likely to see instead is a multi-currency world, where trade is shared among several regional currencies. This could create more balance but might also bring more complexity, like fluctuating exchange rates and different transaction systems. Still, this approach offers more options and reduces global dependence on just one country's economy. The world isn't ditching the dollar immediately, but it's certainly preparing for life with more choices. What de-dollarization means for the future. De-dollarization signals a big shift in how the world does business. If successful, countries will have more freedom in setting their own economic policies without worrying about U.S. interest rates or sanctions. Trade might become more regional, with nations forming tighter economic partnerships nearby. For the U.S., a decline in dollar dominance could mean higher borrowing costs, less global influence, and a need to rethink economic strategies. For everyday people, it might lead to changes in currency values, international travel costs, and investment trends. It could also bring more competition and innovation in global finance as new systems and technologies emerge. The process won't be fast. It could take years, even decades. But the direction is clear. The world is no longer content relying on just one currency. As more countries join this shift, de-dollarization will become a key trend to watch. It's not just an economic adjustment, it's a sign that the global balance of power is changing and the future of money is being rewritten. The world is changing, and so is the way countries trade. De-dollarization isn't just a buzzword, it's a sign of shifting global power. While the US dollar remains strong, its grip is slowly loosening. What comes next could reshape the global economy for decades. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos that make complex topics easy to understand. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.